name is Kamvalet Makoga, and I will be doing the walkthrough methodology of Netflix as well as YouTube. Firstly, what is the walkthrough methodology? The walkthrough methodology involves how the viewers navigate the platforms Netflix and YouTube's interface and features. Recommended videos, shorts tab, subscription tab, and the setting features. Viewers can subscribe to channels and engage with the content. The algorithms are based on what the viewer has searched, watched, or could potentially be interested in. Top views and likes also drives the algorithm. Therefore, if one were to search South African crime documentaries, it may mostly display crime documentaries that are globally popular. This shows that both the Netflix and YouTube algorithm often caters to a global audience over local representation.
Hi, my name is Amy Daniels and I'll be discussing the walkthrough methodology. The walkthrough methodology is a process that examines how users interact with the interfaces and features of platforms such as Netflix and YouTube. Netflix offers a sleek and consistent user interface across all devices and is organized to top searches and recently added features. TV shows and films are recommended based on the viewer's watch history or new releases, whereas YouTube offers a user-friendly interface with a variety of navigation options such as a homepage, displaying the search bar, recommended videos, short tabs, and subscription tabs. Viewers can also subscribe to channels and engage with the content. The YouTube algorithm is based on what the viewer has searched, watched, and could potentially be interested in, and also considers top views and likes, which also drives recommendations. For example, if someone searched a South African crime documentary, it may most likely display crime documentaries that are globally popular. This highlights that both Netflix and YouTube's algorithms often caters to a global audience, sometimes over local representations.
Hi, my name is Lauren, and I will be discussing the local access content on Netflix and YouTube within the South African context. Netflix and YouTube are highly accessible to local audiences, enabling viewers to stream South African shows, videos, or films. When streaming these platforms, the viewers are able to engage with content produced at any time, which makes it flexible and easy to control over what they want to watch or when they want to watch it. Unlike traditional television, which has a very fixed schedule as to when shows are broadcasted. However, as mentioned above, content typically accommodates an international audience because it's already popular. This supports Asmar, Raad's, and Van Oudenhoff's argument as to whether these platforms created are truly progressive by representing local content, or its central focus is to appeal to global audiences.
In this section, we will be discussing the social semiotic analysis of Netflix. We will be using the theoretical framework of Kees van Leeuwen's multimodality to examine Netflix. The multimodal analysis looks at how different modes work together in order to create meaning. So, the multimodal modes that crime and thriller genre uses is lighting, color, camera work, sound, language, and editing. So the key mode when it comes to lighting and color is using dark tones, shadows, and confined spaces to kind of create this isolated feeling when the viewer is watching. The camera angles also plays a huge part in creating this atmosphere. Usually in crime and thriller genres, they make use of single shots as well as over-the-shoulder shots to create an isolated, eerie feeling. That they use are often extremely suspenseful, loud, as well as incorporated audios to create a jump scare kind of feeling for the viewers when watching. When editing the crime and thriller genre, they usually make use of pacing their controls so that this can cause a suspenseful feeling for the viewer, but also keep you on the edge of your seat so that you are curious enough to want to know what happens in the next scene. Right, so my colleagues will delve further into detail of YouTube and Netflix's social semiotic analysis. Without further ado, my colleague Sisona will take over on the Netflix crime series and case studies social semiotic analysis. Over to you.
Hello, I am Sisona and I'll be taking over from my colleague in analyzing lighting, camera work, language, and sound in three South African Netflix series: Unseen, Savage Beauty, and Blood and Water. Starting with lighting. Lighting tells us who each show is for. Unseen uses dark and moody lighting. This creates tension and danger, reflecting Zenza's double life as a domestic worker turned killer. Water is the opposite. Bright, glossy lighting celebrates wealth and sells an aspirational fantasy to young audiences. Savage Beauty sits right in between. Luxurious lighting hides corruption beneath the surface. Moving on to number 2, camera work. Camera work follows the same pattern. Anson uses gritty handheld cameras. Close-ups force us to see Zenzi, a woman literally unseen by society, until she starts murdering people. You get it? Yes. Blood and Water, on the other hand, uses smooth, polished shots. Wide shots of luxury lifestyles sell fantasy. Savage Beauty uses cinematic framing. Boardroom scenes show power, intimate scenes show vulnerabilities. And lastly, language and sound. Language is where the shows feel most South African. South African, yes. Characters move naturally between English, Zulu, and other languages. Unlike old TV, these shows embrace multilingual reality. Sound also targets audiences. Blood and Water uses Shoma Josie and Ecstasy for youth. Unseen uses 10 scores for thriller fans. Savage Beauty uses local music like Mandasi Kisses and emotional moments. 3 key findings. First, visual modes target specific audiences. Gritty for crime fans, glossy for teens, and luxurious for drama lovers. Secondly, authentic South African languages and music are central to all three. Local voices are present. Thirdly, the local global tension is visible in every frame. South African stories made here but designed for a global platform. I'll now pass on to my colleague who will compare these findings to traditional South African television and deliver our final argument on diversification versus digital globalization. And I thank you.
Greetings everyone, I am Dr. Selingabind and I'll be covering the social semiotics analysis using Bella Monson's YouTube channel. Meaning in media is created through multiple modes such as visuals, sound, and language. In Bella Monson's YouTube channel, the channel uses soft and slightly dramatic lighting, close-up camera shots, and direct eye contact to the viewers. The close-up camera shots create intimacy, emotional engagement, and storytelling connection with the viewers, positioning the host as a storyteller directly engaging with the audience. In her editing, she uses fast cuts between narration, and she includes crime images and visual evidence. And there is sound, which is background music, her voice emphasis, and dramatic tones. In terms of language, she uses narrative and descriptive language, and these elements help build the suspense and emotional intensity, which keeps the viewers engaged. While this style effectively immerses the audience in the story, the critics argue that highly emotional storytelling can sometimes dramatize crime, turning it into a social issue, not into entertainment. Bella Monson uses thumbnails that will see her face, the victim's images, and bold text. The target market for her includes crime fans, viewers who are interested in storytelling, and psychology enthusiasts. Thank you. Now I will pass on to my colleague.
It's important for us to now zoom out and ask the question, what does it actually mean that these platforms are not South African? Professor Jean Chalabi, in his book Television and the Streaming Era, argues that streaming platforms have created what he calls integrated cross-border value chains, meaning content is now produced, distributed, and consumed across national boundaries in ways that traditional broadcast television never allowed. This connects directly to a platform's global consistency. Whether it be in Cape Town or London, the Netflix interface and its algorithms remain identical. As Amanda Lotz describes it, we're seeing a move away from the national lens that has historically governed television. Now, looking at the South African series like Blood and Water and Savage Beauty, they use local languages and address specifically South African issues, but they also found that these shows adopt lighting, camera work, and editing that mirror global crime formats. There's dark grading, fast pacing, and psychological complexity. This perspective is reinforced by Jenna, who examines Netflix as a transnational broadcaster that must balance global appeal with local relevance. Jenna argues that Netflix employs a specific grammar of transnationalism, designing content to be globally legible from the outset. The transnational market, she suggests, precedes any notions of a national market. What we're seeing with the South African crime series is precisely this tension. The stories are local, but the storytelling conventions are increasingly standardized. As Chalabi puts it, platforms operate through a single interface globally, which imposes a certain uniformity of how content is presented and consumed. There's a dimension particularly relevant in South Africa. Sisanda Nkoala observes that the history of television here has always been intertwined with political power. While streaming has provided a global platform for local stories, Nkoala raises critical questions about whether this simply reinvents historical patterns of control. She asks who actually controls South African cultural production in this landscape. The implications are even more pronounced on YouTube. Chalabi and Plunkett describe how traditional media now stands on the shoulders of tech giants, relying on global infrastructure controlled by companies like Google, Yes, as noted, YouTube's algorithm prioritizes engagement over authentic representation, channeling local cultural expressions into commodified click-driven formats. So when we put this all together, we see that South African crime stories are more visible than ever, but this visibility operates within a strictly defined global framework. The conditions of that presence are not set by local creators. They're embedded in what Chalabi and Plunkett call the shared IT stack, where profits and data flow back into global tech giants. This will obviously be more explored further by my colleague.
Hi, I'm Evan Schiffers, and I'll be examining how the crime content on Netflix and on YouTube connects to the concept of politics of presence. Now, the politics of presence is a framework that not just asks who appears on screen, but who controls the representation and under what power conditions. Even though these platforms increase visibility for South African crime stories, they are still influenced by the global genre conventions, monetization systems, and algorithmic systems. The author Stuart Hall, he argues that the representation constructs meaning and shapes social reality. The way crime is shown is never neutral. It decides who is the criminal, who is the victim, and who deserves justice. The other author, Nicole, he builds on this and argues that the media power lies in the ability to frame reality, meaning visibility alone does not equal power. The key questions are: who funds this production? Who decides on the storyline? Who is the target audience? And who benefits from this economically? Visibility does not always mean structural power. This is directly relevant to our topic, where the authors show that Netflix uses diversity as a branding strategy and not a structural transformation of who holds the narrative power. Netflix is a global corporation producing content for international audiences. Stories are often structured to appeal to global markets, and English is their dominant use of language. I can give an example of a show known as Blood and Water. This is a South African Netflix show where it uses drone shots of Cape Town, has multiple code-switching languages from Zulu, English, and Afrikaans, and has a high-classy, high-budget, high-value production. But these choices are often made by the Netflix commissioning teams, and not the South African community the show depicts. The story is shaped to appeal to a global subscriber base. This show is noted for its showcasing of the luxurious side of Cape Town, including the lavish parties. This demonstrates how local stories are adapted to global platform expectations. On YouTube, anyone can upload a criminal or a crime commentary, but the algorithm controls the visibility. So African voices can only be seen if they adopt this global format. So while streaming expands visibility for South African crime stories, however, according to the politics of presence, this visibility is structured by the platform algorithms, by the global genre conventions, and the monetization systems. It is not pure diversification. Therefore, the representation of streaming platforms is not structural transformation, but is rather conditional presence, meaning where the local stories are visible but are still controlled and shaped by global media power structures. Thank you.
When we talk about traditional linear television in South Africa, we talk about a scheduled broadcast-based system, namely SABC and DSTV. According to Williams, it is something viewers watch at a fixed time. While traditional television have fixed time slots with explicit content only being available from 9 p.m. and later, Netflix and YouTube allow viewers to watch whatever they want at any time. And yeah, I have an example of like the schedule. This is a TV guide. It's old, but just to give you an idea. When we compare the production aesthetics of traditional television in South Africa to Netflix-based series and YouTube, we can immediately see the difference. Traditional television is much lighter and more realistic. It is also brighter because a lot of the settings take place in real townships. This is because of the limited budget. It is less cinematic, but it makes up for it in the authentic representation of the country. As Team 2 already stated, Netflix's lighting has dark tones and shadows to set the mood and tone, while YouTube's lighting is softer and more theatrical to ease the mood because of the serious subjects at hand. I apologize in advance for my pronunciation of the surnames. Nkola and Motsatebe argue that television should not just be a form of entertainment, but also education through the notion television with a purpose. They say that this is scholarship on television by black scholars examining representation of blackness on South African television, analyzing content created by black producers and directors, and critiquing the industry from an Afrocentric perspective. Blood and Water serves as entertainment while subtly informing the viewers. I say subtly because not everyone knows that the kidnapping is based on Zephaninas. Traditional television is also more dialogue based. whereas YouTube videos is more about storytelling and the focus is on one person. If we take the series Blood and Water on Netflix, dialogue is very present, but they add suspense or music to enhance the mood. The two authors also highlight the language used in traditional television in South Africa, stating that multilingualism in the crime genre functions as a bridge between the fictional world and the lived experiences of the audience, ensuring that the dialogue resonates with the rhythmic diversity of urban life. Shows like Blood and Water and Savage Beauty are similar in adding languages like English, isiZulu, and Afrikaans to create a sense of representation. Another key argument presented by these authors is how crime is never just about the criminal, but also being a product of the environment. They say that in the contemporary South African crime drama, the landscape itself, the township, the gated community, the hijacked inner city buildings act as a silent protagonist, reminding the viewer that crime is the inevitable byproduct of unresolved structural inequality. Intersections, for instance. In this series, crime and social problems are linked to behavior. In this way, YouTube is similar to the traditional television in South Africa because stories are being told based off actual crimes in South Africa, and creators like Bella Monsoon frame crime as a social issue. Final verdict. My investigators and I have come to the conclusion that Netflix is an example of digital globalization, and here's why. Although Netflix provides a platform for the sustenance of South African culture, the platform also sits on a fence. They are able to provide massive budgets and recruit local talents. However, they also make sure that the content is watered down just enough to make it digestible for global audiences. Thank you for listening.